No woman, no cry. No woman, no cry.
Greetings, my fellow Krakoans. Welcome once again to Days of Future podcast, the show about all things X-Men. Very different kind of setup for us today.
It is, yeah. This is the first time we've been
in person in a very long time.
Yeah, we've been in person, just not in the same person.
He's already working blue. All right.
So, cancel culture's already out to get me. So I apologize. Yeah. But yeah,
you and I haven't seen each other in person in, a few years. It's been a long time. We used to record this, for our longtime listeners might know, we used to record this in person every time. Over here at your place. Then I was an asshole and I moved.
But in your defense, COVID hit not soon after that.
It's true.
So we would have been recording.
We would have been recording virtually anyways.
So we jumped the gun.
Yeah, it's just like I knew it was coming. Actually, I did release it. I broke into that lab.
That was you.
Yeah, that was me.
Hey.
Hey,
you.
I really wanted to go on Zoom. That was the thing.
You invested in toilet paper?
Well, I was an early stockholder in Zoom. Nobody was using it, and I was like, what could I do to bump this up a little bit? And I thought, a global pandemic, which I'm like, everyone use it.
Yeah, and you did.
And one thing that the other byproduct of that is, I'm sure you noticed, podcast culture, shot way up during the pandemic. Suddenly, we were one of the 10 first podcasts, right?
It was us.
Yeah.
Joe Rogan.
Mm-hmm.
And
our hero.
I think that was it.
Yeah. And then Serial ripped us off.
Yeah.
They were the next ones.
Yeah. Well, because we... never mind. Hey, listen, I'm learning, because now I can look at myself as I say these terrible things. Yeah. I mean, I guess I could.
I'm already feeling bad about saying that Joe Rogan is our hero. That's not true, for the record.
Yeah.
But no, we're back. Again, thank you for our longtime listeners and just regular listeners for being patient with us, as always. We know we're not the most regular podcasts. We have lives. I think a lot of other podcast hosts don't have lives. That's my assumption.
Well, they don't.
Yeah.
That's true. I know some other podcast hosts, and they don't have lives.
Yeah, they don't have lives. But no, I guess we were just saying, why are we back in person? People are wondering then. I actually have moved back to the area. So, after a few years away, I'm back, baby.
Now that COVID's over.
Just a different kind of job opportunity, and I was able to come back. So. And
I live here forever.
Yeah, you're never going anywhere. So, but also, as you guys are listeners and regular, I hate saying fans because that just sounds weird, but listeners and I guess now viewers know, we have recently been trying to do these a little bit more with a visual component.
Sure.
So today we decided to finally get together, record a new episode, and you had the idea of, hey, let's sit very uncomfortably close to each other.
Let's sit uncomfortably, and we licked each other off cam. That was weird.
Yeah, that was strange.
We probably could have done that for our OnlyFans. In my suburban kitchen, as you can see, some nice.
I'm surprised you didn't put some X-Men figures back there or something. If I had known, I would have brought.
Well, I've got a whole shrine, my X-Men shrine upstairs. So I'm trying to get a better space to just have normal Zoom calls too for when I do take, because I work from home on occasion, and so I want a nice little space. My space right now is pretty gross.
Yeah.
So
okay. All right.
I mean, so gross that I can't even have you up there.
And the first thing I asked when I came in was, can we go upstairs? But that's for it's been a long time since we've seen each other. I'm going to take a second here. Pardon me as one other thing about coming over to Joe's house is you definitely get a Mountain Dew. That's the gift that everyone gets.
Today is sponsored by
Mountain Dew Major Melon.
You gotta salute them. That's the one. That's the
Are we getting paid for this? We should, right? This is product placement.
No, I bought this.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So honestly, if you taste it, here we go. Live reaction.
Live reaction. Never had this.
Here we go. Let's see.
It's fine. It's fine.
It's pretty good, right? So
I got the melon. It's no Baja Blast still. No Baja Blast.
So I'm gonna say this right now. So all right.
Are you about to talk smack on Baja
No.
Blast?
Okay. Love Baja Blast.
Okay. All right.
So, but listen. I'm a zero sugar man.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. No, Baja Blast has a zero also, though.
I'll get to that. Baja Blast Zero Sugar is the worst of the zero sugars.
It's not great.
Like Baja Blast Normal, which is what they have in the cans now, totally fine. I mean, it's great Baja Blast that you remember as a child, as a young pup. The zero sugar, it's really bad.
Yeah. What do you think is the best zero sugar?
I think Major Melon might be the best zero sugar. I mean, Code Red, obviously, but they like stopped doing the zero sugar thing for that. But
I think have you had the Dr. Pepper zero sugar? That's great. You know, Dr. Pepper had already kind of figured out how to taste just like Dr. Pepper. So it's like they just had this formula where they've nailed it. But.
Yeah, there's really not necessarily unless you want. I feel like you burp more with regular Dr. Pepper.
Yeah. I don't know.
And some people want that.
I don't take that little clicker out and like count my burps when I know you do. But
I have a guy for that who counts my burps.
We should quickly do a weather report. Since that's
it's a
little overcast today,
a little gloomy,
but
not bad.
No, not bad.
It's been hot here. Though, sweltering in the old Mutton state.
I think not. I mean, I feel like most of our listeners can probably sympathize because I believe the entire planet has been on fire for the past couple weeks.
I don't pay attention to anything outside my bubble.
No, the climate is going. I mean, we will all be dead in about 4 years.
Is there something happening with the climate stuff?
It has been great. I don't know if you've noticed, but there's.
I haven't noticed.
We could have been doing a better job with that. You and we should have been doing more about the climate. Not going out and spraying those.
I got that private jet too.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Me and Kylie Jenner, we share a jet.
We share those 5-minute flights.
Yep.
So today we wanted to talk about a lot of the happenings in the MCU realm.
Yeah.
We're finally getting to the point. We've been waiting for this for a while. We were like always kind of struggling, saying, "Oh, the Fox stuff has ended. We know the MCU stuff is coming.
Yeah.
When's it coming?" And we're finally starting to get some inklings of that, and so we can actually, not as much as we maybe thought, but we can finally talk about some of that. So we wanted just to kind of do a episode today to cover some of the recent shows and a movie, and then talk about, as we record this, last night was the big Marvel panel at San Diego Comic-Con. So we're going to talk about that. But first, Joe, I wanted to take a moment to highlight one of our listeners.
Yep.
And in particular, we've been very, very lucky for this like little rinky-dink podcast, which I think is just like this general little hobby for both of us.
Yeah, a rinky-dink?
Yeah. Well, it's a little rinky-dink.
What's this? What are you dragging it for?
I mean, look at this. Look at this nasty-ass home. No, I'm sorry. I'm just kidding. No, we've been very, very lucky to, over the years, have some very, very gracious, awesome, funny, like listeners who get in touch with us on our social media. And in the past, we've had listeners want to send us stuff, which is not something we ever expected when we started this. Remember our good friend Christian Barty has been really kind, sent us like a lot of stuff.
Us a lot of stuff,
including some games we still need to find a time. Now we finally can actually find time to play.
I've got it ready.
Yeah, okay. So we'll finally get around to that, some old X-Men video games. But we've been very lucky that we've had some listeners. And a couple months ago, one of our listeners reached out to me. His name is Frank Castelli, which worries me because it sounds like maybe it's the Punisher. And I'm gonna, but I mean, you and I haven't done anything bad, so I guess we're fine, right? So Frank Castelli reached out to me and told me he was an avid listener. Again, I don't want to say fan, but he enjoys the show.
Yeah.
And so first of all, thanks just for that in general. Thanks for digging the show. But he was very, very kind and said, "Hey, I want to send both of you something." And so he did. He sent us both a couple X-Men related gifts, and we want to take a moment here to show those, in appreciation. So I'll start with what he sent me. This is pretty cool. Obviously, he definitely is a regular listener because he definitely knew who my favorite X-Men character is, and that is Emma Frost. And so he decided to send me. This is a signed. It's a variant edition of X-Men 11 with a cover by David Nakayama, and it is signed by David Nakayama. Has the certificate of authenticity there. And it's very cool. I love this cover. This is great. I'd never seen this before. Putting Jean in her place where she belongs, because as you know, I believe my true heart is Scott and Emma, to this day. So I really appreciate this. This is one of those ones I might throw in one of those like little simple frames because I don't really, it's like single issues anymore. I don't take out and read, so I read everything digitally pretty much today. So because this is like a really cool.
It's great. And, I wasn't a fan of you asking to recreate that today though.
Upstairs.
Yeah. You brought the Emma... we were both going to do
the Emma cosplay.
The Emma cosplay. I thought that was really interesting. And then he sent me... This is one of my faves, right? Look at this. Arcade. Supervillain. Arcade. Look at that. Is that not just an amazing figure? I am obsessed with action figures. I wish to be one someday. And I'm also obsessed with Arcade, as listeners know, and the fact that he didn't, spoilers for previous Mutant March matchups, that he didn't win. We've made it pretty far. Big fan. I'm a big fan of Arcade. I think this is amazing. I am so excited.
Now, which head do you like better? Because there's an alternate Arcade head in there. You have
let's get a closer look. Let's see if you can
short hair
get in there.
Arcade. There's long hair, and there's short hair right there in the main one.
You think I'd be better at this as a production guy? So the short hair is probably more iconic. The long hair, though, is what Jesse Eisenberg's going to have when he plays him in the MCU. I'd probably go short hair, though.
I still think Donald Gleason.
Yeah, no, that's probably more. That makes more sense. That makes more sense. But what's great is this is the supervillains of all Marvel collection, and Arcade's representing the X-Men. We got Doctor Doom, same level as Arcade, really. Lady Deathstrike, okay. Red Skull. We got an AIM dude. We got the Hood. They have to put the Marvels the Hood because of Robin, probably. And then Dormammu. I mean, that's a good crew.
It's interesting that Lady Deathstrike and Arcade would be like the two. The two X-Men characters to pick, but also there are probably two characters that have been very underrepresented in previous lines.
Yeah. So this is.
It's awesome. It is a great
Frank,
figure. Yeah.
Punisher.
Now, are you going to leave that in the box, or what are you going to do?
This is really difficult for me.
Maybe we should ask Frank what he thinks you should do.
I probably will leave it in a box. I probably will. I don't necessarily want to because I like to play with them, but I probably will leave. I probably will leave them in the box just because it's awesome that someone sent that in.
Yeah. So thanks again. We really appreciate that. Certainly no one listening or watching is obligated to send us anything. You can if you want. Let us know, and we're more than happy, and we'll always show it off and talk about it.
If you buy an Emma Frost cosplay costume, Trev will wear it.
Well, you got to first get in touch with me, get my dimensions, get everything,
No, just let it ride. Just guess.
Also,
just upload those nude pics. Well, he's in Spanx.
Also, in that same run of talking about listeners, I didn't want to forget also a listener named Sean Cooper a while back. I'm sorry, this just kind of got lost in the shuffle a little bit, and I didn't mean for it to. He sent us a couple questions that I wanted to answer. So one was he asked, he could send a message to us on our Facebook page, and he said, did we ever figure out how the X-Men have so much money? If you actually go back and very early on, we talked about that in a very, very early episode, and I think we kind of just did the general assumption that everyone else has, that a lot of it's probably coming from Warren Worthington initially. We think he might be financing a lot of it. Also, I feel like Xavier probably just has a lot of stocks and bonds and kind of hidden accounts and things like that.
I think Xavier has money. You kind of get a little bit of Xavier's father's story a little bit in some of the recent stuff.
Yeah, he comes from money for sure. And then today we know their money is coming from the selling and the kind of political machinations of X Corp and selling their drugs to other countries and things like that. So, but then he asked a really great question. This is one that got me thinking. And I know he put a ha here, so clearly maybe it's just kind of joking, but he said, "What happens if Cyclops gets pink eye?" And I was thinking about that. It's what? Cyclops can't put drops in his eyes. It's because he can't how would you do that, right? Because he can't take the glasses off. He has to have them on constantly. And the moment he puts drops in, the concussion blast is going to come out, right? And so
it's a great question.
This is a great question.
And he gets it a lot, I think. I would imagine if the major cause pink eye.
Yeah. I was about to say it, and I was like, nah, I wouldn't.
You Google that. Yeah. I think so they've definitely in the comics had Jean turn off his power for a hot minute so they can look at each other. Yeah. Emma would never.
Which is funny whenever they do that, and then you think to yourself, why can't you just do that for him more permanently?
Yeah, because she does a lot of stuff permanently.
Yeah.
I mean, even Cable permanently. I mean, his is more of a telekinetic thing. But I mean, I guess it was.
Well, we also know there was runs where some people had they had to have power dampeners, and it's Cyclops is a character who you'd think every time they bring in power dampeners into the comics, it's used to keep him prisoner.
Yeah.
Cyclops is someone who you'd think when they broke out of one of those facilities, he'd be like, can I hold on to that and maybe just wear it most of the time?
So it'd be interesting because I think most of his, so his power is really important, right? But I think what's more important is his old noggin. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? He could be decommissioned, and depowered and still be an effective leader. Sure. That's his strength.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a tactical leader.
Yeah.
So yeah. Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. So we don't know what happens if he gets pink eye, but we imagine probably Jean.
That's a challenge.
Probably Jean could help somehow. Yeah.
Jerry Duggan challenge.
Yeah, Jerry. Yeah, come on. we're this far into X-Men into your run, Jerry, and you haven't bothered to answer this question.
Yeah.
And people say you're a good writer.
Your silence is
it's deafening. All right. Well, thank you for those questions. If anybody has any questions or suggestions for like episode topics or something, please let us know because we're always like, well, what should we do next?
Well, don't make it sound like you're dragging us today.
Sorry.
We got so many ideas.
Yeah, we have a lot of ideas, but you can always send us more. You can send us questions.
Mostly it's Trev doing like try-ons of Emma cosplays.
Yes. Not just Emma. Also, like the magic costume I got.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The maggot. Well, you just got
Stacy X.
You just got those 2 giant maggots that you've been carrying around.
Yeah, but that has nothing to do with X-Men. Just had that raw beef in my trunk for too long.
Yeah, that's true. That's what you're most known for too.
And also in terms of we showed the figure and the comic cover, but if anyone is listening to the audio only version of this, head over to our Instagram page and we'll have pictures of those there as well. So
yeah, absolutely.
So we want to talk about some MCU type stuff.
Yeah, let's start with a little bit of the movies.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit of...
Well, we already talked about Doctor Strange.
We did.
Yeah. We had an episode about that. But we've had another Marvel movie since, obviously, because one does come out every 3 days now. That's the new law.
Yeah.
And you are obligated to see them.
I'm actually really excited because you were very hyped for Thor: Love and Thunder.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And we have not talked about.
And you were not that hyped.
I wasn't. I was like,
whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I was more hyped for D Strange.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I was definitely more hyped for Thor: Love and Thunder. Yeah.
So, kind of give me some impressions on your.
And you did see it, right?
Oh, I saw it.
Okay, so you want my general impressions?
Yeah. Everyone thought it was Hemsworth when I walked in, though.
Yeah, I know that must have been awful, right?
Yeah, because
did they think you're gonna do those things where you walked in front of the screen and said, "Hey, thanks for coming"?
Well, I had to go. Yeah, because I sat and then I went to go get a hot dog.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, "There he is, Thor. Yeah. There he is."
And the weird thing is, everyone thought I was Korg, just a fictional character.
Well, you were rock hard.
I was, but then I was not. Because I did not like the movie.
Oh yeah. Okay.
I found it extremely disappointing. It's one of my least favorite MCU films.
Yeah.
I walked out pretty bummed and pretty shocked that the same creative team, there could be such a dip, right? I was trying to think in the review I wrote for Letterboxd, I wrote that like this was one of, to me, like in recent memory, one of the most glaring examples of like from one film to the next of like a dip in quality. I was like, geez, like I'm trying to think of something, and a buddy of mine said like, what about Wonder Woman 84? And I was like, that's pretty good, but that one I kind of understood because they actually got rid of the writer of the original one, and Patty Jenkins just took on complete control, and then you realize like, maybe she shouldn't be writing it all by herself, right? Maybe the directing was her strength.
Yeah.
The example that kind of came to mind more for me of like a movie I loved, and then when I saw the second one, I was like, oh. And I wrote my reviews. I said, Thor: Love and Thunder has big Men in Black 2 energy.
Yeah, right? Great point. Yeah.
Where it's like they're doing the same thing basically, right? Like it's, you get what they're going for. It's not ultimately different. That's the other thing about Wonder Woman to Wonder Woman 84 was, you can say Wonder Woman 84 is much worse than the first film, and I agree, but they were trying something different. They were going for like a totally different vibe. It was like a different kind of movie. This was just trying to do Ragnarok again, and so you'd think like, well, okay, maybe that's kind of a bummer they're trying to do it again, but it'll probably turn out kind of okay, right? But no, it was so less funny. It was, I'm sure we're going to talk about some of what we heard since about the making of it and everything, but it felt very sloppy.
I haven't heard anything weird about the making of.
Okay, I have. We can talk about that.
So I felt the same way, but I went with pretty low expectations. Yeah. Tonally so off. Like, it was so weird because I don't know about your theater. I saw it relatively early on. Like, all the jokes fell flat.
Yeah, no, I saw it the second weekend, but it was still, the theater had a nice size audience, and same problem, like pin drop. I mean, people were not laughing at the jokes.
The character that I was really excited for, okay, I like that Helmsworth, right?
Yeah.
And the character that I was really excited for, Valkyrie.
Mm-hmm.
Total
nothing.
A total nothing in the film.
Yeah.
And even Korg,
Korg, who was a highlight of Ragnarok, I found almost unbearable in this one. Right?
Yeah. Nothing. And the Jane Foster stuff didn't click for me.
No, and that's one of the main things I want to talk about. It was obviously great. I'm happy for Natalie Portman. I know she's had like a questionable relationship with this franchise at this point. So it's cool to see her get to come in and be the hero alongside everyone else.
Sure.
And I think she acclimated herself to it fine. You know, her performance was not the problem. How they handled that character, actually, I thought some of it was kind of disgusting, and I want to talk about that a little bit. So yeah, and then I think the most surprising thing was the tone and how unfunny it was, and particularly that first half. Like, it gets a little better in the second half when it seems like it's a little bit more knows what it's doing.
Yeah.
I'm sure you noticed that there was, I believe, 4 credited editors, which is never a good sign. And that first hour in particular, it felt like, wow, this is really haphazardly edited together.
Yeah.
You could just see things that were missing and things that were just kind of, I guess we'll just go to this next. Even the way, so we're going to get into spoilers, obviously. But, like, just the handling of Jane becoming Thor and, like, how that's, like, kind of structured in the film. And I don't know, wouldn't it have just been better to just have her show up as Thor the first time and then go back and flashback to show everything else?
Yeah.
It's like you can just see the easy fixes to make here.
Yeah.
And
well, because I think in a perfect world, if you really want to have this serialized series, we find out in Ragnarok or in Endgame that she has cancer. You know what I mean? And that's with you going into it. Because you have to kind of imagine that the audience already knows Jane's showing up. Mm-hmm. Like, we already know that because Jane, it's like in the everything. Yeah. So when she shows up with cancer, you can already kind of piece it together in your head. Yeah. Right. So flashbacks would have been made more sense. It just was like, I kept getting confused. Not confused, but like, man, they're making a jump with this moment where Thor's like, okay, now I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to show up to this, and all of a sudden, they're attacking the village. I will say Christian Bale, I enjoyed his performance, and I was creeped out by him. Like, he didn't.
That was the bummer of it. Like, if only the movie had been at his level, you realize that Gore the God Butcher could have been one of their best villains. But unfortunately, he's stuck in a movie that doesn't quite know what to do with him. Yeah. Like, even to the point, and I was like so bothered by so many other things that there's even things that like more I realized later after I heard other people complain about him, where I'm like, wow, I guess like subconsciously that probably affected me as well, but I wasn't thinking about it as much. Mm-hmm. But someone made the point about how he's Gore the God Butcher, but they don't show him murdering any of the gods. Like, it's all off screen. Yeah. So it's like him as a threat doesn't ever really feel as scary as it could. To go back to, let's go back to Jane Foster for a moment, because there's other things to talk about. But you said that it would have been better if they told us earlier she had cancer. I said it would be better if we introduced her in this film as Thor and then went backwards. Here's just another little suggestion, and feel free, future filmmakers, to take this if you want. I know this might sound crazy, but I think if you're going to say a character has terminal stage 4 cancer in their final months, you might want them to look and act sick. There's just an idea, right? This is where we're getting to the problem with tone, right? Yeah. Taika Waititi obviously wanted to make another very, very funny comedy. I think him and Chris Hemsworth loved that part of Ragnarok. They wanted to get together again and goof off. And then at some point, and this is why I wish I knew a little bit more, because I wonder how much Taika Waititi really cared about the Mighty Thor storyline and how much was Marvel saying, we got to do this. Like, right? That's the most popular comic story of Thor the last few years. We want to get Portman back. We need to put that in here. And then he was like, all right, well, cancer, I'm not sure if cancer fits into my funny world. And they're like, don't worry, it'll work. And it doesn't, because the movie isn't willing to play cancer as seriously as it should, obviously. You go back and just look up, do a Google search for Jane Foster Mighty Thor comics, and look at how she's depicted whenever she's not Thor. And it looks like someone who has stage 4 cancer. And in the movie, the first time they showed her, and she's getting chemo, and she just is like, she's joking around with Kat Dennings, right? And it's and she looks pretty much fine. I was just like, and they're like, oh, and then they say, oh, you only have a few months left or a few weeks, and I was like, what? Like, I didn't realize the movie was trying to make me think it was that advanced. Yeah. And so there was that element that bothered me. And then the second thing, this gets to this somewhat, is I don't know if you've read a lot of the Mighty Thor run, but the thing about the Mighty Thor comics was she was the main character in those. At that point, Thor...
He was unworthy.
He was unworthy, and he became Odin's son, and he was really a supporting character that only popped up every once in a while. They gave him his own miniseries that was off to the side, and he would show up from time to time, and it basically got to the same point. It got to the same idea of her sacrificing herself and him becoming Thor again. But because she was the main character, it really was about her and about her journey. Yeah. And this idea of what a heroic sacrifice that is, that every time she uses the hammer, it saps a little bit more of her mortal strength, and so it's accelerating her dying. In this movie, she's a sidekick, and her storyline and her sacrifice is used to motivate Thor. Yeah. And that's what really bummed me out. This was very much like I don't want to call it a full women in fridges kind of thing, but if the shoe fits to a certain degree, her storyline and her death was really more about Thor advancing to a new level of his character development, and that really skeeved me out a little bit.
Well, they also kind of pushed this like relationship between her and Valkyrie, right? But that happens off screen.
Yeah.
Like by the time Thor and Mighty Thor meet, like Valkyrie's like, "Ha, we'll tell you about it," and it's like, oh, so she knew too. Like I thought we were gonna get an explanation of Valkyrie. I guess I was just expecting more out of her character, out of Valkyrie's character.
Yeah.
Because I think Tessa Thompson, if I was Marvel, I mean, that's an actor and a character that I would put some time and effort behind. But she kind of gets sidelined too. Like it's
even going back. Okay, so again, I do have a lot of complaints about this film. Sorry, but when they announced this movie back at Comic-Con a few years ago, one of the big viral moments was somebody asked Tessa Thompson, what's Valkyrie going to be up to in this movie? And we all remember her iconic answer, where she said, well, she's the king now, and I think the first thing the king needs to do is find their queen. Hall H erupts. Kevin Feige cheering. Yes. Kevin Feige later being asked about that, saying, yes, that's definitely, we want to make sure Queen Valkyrie, or King Valkyrie finds her queen. Queer representation. Here we go again with Disney, right? This is becoming a reoccurring thing. This is, one of my problems with America Chavez and in Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness. They have these opportunities for true queer representation, and they just completely chicken out and don't do it. And so instead you have, from that initial answer of, wow, this is going to be about Valkyrie finding her queen, she mentions an ex-girlfriend once and, like, offhandedly kisses a character at one point as they escape from the Hall of the Gods, and that's it. And then she gets a boo-boo and says, I need to sit out the last battle. And you're like, all right, goodbye, Valkyrie. Like, yeah, so that was very disappointing as well. And like I don't know if you saw that clip where Taika Waititi and Natalie Portman were introducing the film at some screening, and they were doing a little Q&A first, and someone asked, how gay is this movie? And Natalie Portman's like, very gay. And I'm like, wait, you should be sued for libel. Now what are you talking like?
Yeah, I definitely like you see the not that Rotten Tomatoes is the be all end all, but you start to see they go Ragnarok was up here and this one's all the way down here, and some people were like, oh, I don't know about that. And I'm like, oh yeah, I mean, it didn't really do anything exciting.
Yeah, it didn't feel like it needed to exist, right?
Yeah,
like it didn't, and that's been a consistent problem of Phase 4 in general. I think because a lot of these things don't feel like they're moving the needle or moving the overall larger story. And not that we've always said we like standalones. One of the reasons I actually liked Black Widow more than I think a lot of other people did is at the time. Well, first of all, part of that was just coming out of the pandemic. I was happy to see another big blockbuster. Yeah. But also, I still like Black Widow more than others. I think because I kind of like how it's just this like smaller standalone. So that's not the issue. But also because as a prequel, that was fine, right? We knew her story was done, so it didn't have to feel like it was moving anything, right? Yeah. And it still was it still was introducing Yelena like more, so it still was doing what it needed to do. This one, like even the way it treated like the Guardians, right? Where like that was kind of a selling point of the Guardians being in it, and then they're like they don't really do anything. Yeah. And I don't know about you, but I just also found Thor's characterization and character arc in this one very strange and like hard to figure out. Like I didn't understand where he was mentally at the beginning. Like he was like he seemed pretty happy being with the Guardians. Like he was like having a lot of fun with them, and then he suddenly just kind of arbitrarily decides like, no, it's time for me to move on. Yeah. And I didn't really get what they were going for. And then most of the movie is just him like pining over his ex-girlfriend, and I don't know. Yeah, it felt like a movie that couldn't figure out what it wanted to do thematically. Mm-hmm. And what I was talking about with the... so here's where I can talk about a little bit about... You said you didn't read much about the behind-the-scenes stuff, but it really sounds like this one was kind of a mess, because I guess Taika Waititi's initial cut was 4 hours long, which that, you always hear about that in general, like those assembly cuts. But in like kind of cutting it down, major subplots were lost. And I don't know if you heard anything about this, but... Jeff Goldblum was originally in it, completely cut out. Yeah. Lena Headey was originally in it, completely cut out. Peter Dinklage was originally in it, completely cut out. So 3 major actors who are just not in the movie anymore, right? And you can assume, I'm assuming the Peter Dinklage thing was to fix a little bit of what I thought was a plot hole, and I haven't seen anyone else talk about it. I'm surprised that other people have been bitching about this, but the kind of MacGuffin of this movie is Gore is trying to get Stormbreaker, Thor's axe, because we found out that's the only key to open up this like other dimension where you can go and ask someone for anything you want. Mm-hmm. And I was just thinking, okay, so this is like an ancient dimension. Stormbreaker's the key. Wait a minute, wasn't Stormbreaker made for Thor like 2 years ago? Yeah. Like, that's just like glossed over. And that's the thing with Marvel now is they do this a lot where they don't want to stop and think about these things, right? Yeah. So I'm guessing Dinklage was maybe trying to acknowledge that somewhat, but for
like powering through some of those
for actors of that caliber to just be completely cut out, and then for and then Taika Taika Waititi, I'm not going to turn on Taika Waititi like the internet has in general, it seems like, in the wake of it. I don't know if you saw that. It seems like people suddenly were like, this proves Taika Waititi has no talent. I'm like, well, what's more likely, that like he never had talent, or that maybe the guy who did make What We Do in the Shadows, Hunt for the Wilder People, Ragnarok, Jojo Rabbit, maybe he just got a little bit defeated by the Marvel system this time, and maybe he shouldn't have rushed into doing a second one. That's what I think happened.
Yeah, I agree with you, and that is interesting to hear. And then all his talk about like, I don't believe in director's cuts is could be him just like, well, like, because he seems like a relatively bright side of life kind of person in terms of, I have to just keep moving.
Yeah, and I think he doesn't care if the movie didn't even turn out that great. I think he likes hanging out on set with all these actors and having a good time, and more power to him. But at a certain point, you have to take all the footage and put it into a movie that people enjoy, and that's where things got a little awry this time.
Yeah. So here's my dying question. Dying question? Oh, that's something. Did you prefer Multiverse of Madness?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure.
1-0.
No, Love and Thunder is in my bottom four. Yeah. My bottom four, like the whole MCU.
Worse than Iron Man 3.
I like Iron Man 3. So
good. I forgot.
Yeah, no, I
love Iron Man 3.
Yeah, I'm an Iron Man 3 defender. Don't start me on people who don't like Iron Man 3. But I'd say the only ones I think were worse. I'm trying to remember exactly what my list is. I can actually bring it up.
Look what you did now, internet.
Yeah, you're gonna have to know now. Kill some time while I look this up.
Can we talk about post-credit scene?
Yeah, we can. Oh, here we go. We'll talk about that. So my bottom four would be Love and Thunder, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Iron Man 2, and Thor: The Dark World, this was still better than that. That to me is like still the bottom of the barrel for MCU. But yeah, that's for me. And all those are kind of the same thing, where I just feel like all of those don't feel like they need to be there. They don't add much to the larger picture.
What's number one? Scroll up.
My number one MCU movie is still Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Yeah.
Interesting picks.
And Ragnarok's still in my top 5, so like that's what that does show. Like,
I should do. What do you got this on? Letterboxd.
Letterboxd. Yeah. This is not.
People want to know my rankings, my official one. Yeah, they do.
And this is also, I should say, of my rankings, I still have not seen Eternals, so that's the one that still have never watched it. Post credits. So what do you want to say about?
So post credit, I thought it was interesting that. I'm curious if the post credit scene, like where that came from, like. The idea, spoilers obviously, Natalie Portman's character shows up in Valhalla. Was this just like a nice send-off for both of those two?
I think it was.
Or are they like going to like... Because they talked about Valhalla a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm like, are we going to go there at some point? Like, do you go there in the... I don't even know in the...
I felt like it was, right? I felt like that was like to just... because it can go either way, right? If we never see Natalie Portman again, then at least you get to say like, well, she's in heaven, right? So... But I did think, knowing what happens in the comics, knowing that after she passed away as Mighty Thor, she came back to the comics as Valkyrie, and she's Mighty Valkyrie now. And I thought that's
up in an X-Men.
I thought that's what was going to happen at that post-credit scene, right? When you saw her in Valhalla, I was like, they're going to be like, your work isn't done or something, right?
Yeah.
And the way they structured it instead, I did kind of feel like, I think they think Natalie Portman probably doesn't want to come back again. Right. It was already kind of shocking she came back for this, and I think maybe she is the type of person who just wanted to put a better button on her character than just I broke up with Thor.
Yeah. Well, considering there's already this source material that was well received, you know. So that's Thor. That's the biggest, in theory, phase 4. But Miss Marvel, the show,
yes.
6 episodes. Kamala Khan, you're a big Kamala Khan fan in the comics. What was your hype level, thought level going into this series?
Hype level, not much, simply because, and again, I was excited for Love and Thunder, but when we recorded the Doctor Strange episode, I believe I said this, and it's still true. I'm pretty burnt out on MCU in general. It's not even to say I haven't been liking all the projects. Like, my favorite show of the whole bunch was Hawkeye, which wasn't that long ago, right? That was Christmas, Christmas time. I really did like that show, and I liked Spider-Man No Way Home. I didn't go gaga about it like everyone else did, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very, very effective what it was trying to do. But it's really the unending feeling now of the MCU and just how consistent it is, how much these things are getting thrown at us. And with the TV shows in particular, I think I'm finding it really hard to get excited about the TV shows
because they seem like trailers.
They do. They seem like they're these little in between pieces to say.
Except Wanda.
Except WandaVision, except for Loki. Like, there's been some ones, but like, I'm willing to bet when we see the next Captain America movie that you didn't need Falcon and Winter Soldier in there, right? Because like when Endgame ended, he like gives the shield to Sam, and I think we all just said like, oh, okay, he's Captain America now. But then instead we had to sit through like 8 episodes for him to be like, no, I'm not. Oh, yes, I am.
It's like 4, but I think 4. It felt
like whatever, yeah. And so that's what I worried about. So my hype wasn't very strong, and honestly, it took me a while to get around to watching Miss Marvel. I did not watch it as it aired, and honestly, there came a point where I was like, I don't even know if I'm going to watch it. And then I remember, well, I probably should because we talk about these things. And then I had the big thing we want to talk about spoiled for me. And then when it was spoiled for me, I was like, well, okay, now I have to watch it because Joe and I are going to have to talk about it. I went first on Love and Thunder. I want to hear what you thought about this. Because I think you're less familiar with the character as well.
Yeah, so I had less attachment to her. I thought they did a really good job of surrounding her with characters that I enjoyed and actors that I found I didn't know beforehand that I found myself enjoying. You know, like I really enjoyed her brother. I enjoyed her parents. I liked Bruno. And so I liked that. I liked the actress who played Kamala Khan. Like to me, I thought she worked. For someone who has no acting experience, kind of putting a lot on her shoulders. So that being said, I wish that they stayed at like a smaller scale, because when they started, I actually found myself really interested in the time travel part that had nobody else in it. Like I was just kind of like, man, I need to learn a lot more about India, Pakistan stuff, and so that kept my interest.
Yeah, it's neat when shows can teach you a little bit of history.
And I was like, man, I want to go, but then I was like, oh yeah, this is a show that's a little confusing of who the bad guys are and what they are, and they don't really finish it, you know, like so the bad guys are the clandestine, right, which is like her grandma's sister and a bunch of other djinns who are stuck in this alternate reality. Oh, she's part of this alternate reality, kind of, and they need her to get back. But
or at least need her bangle.
They need the bangle to get back, but then when they try and get back, it starts killing people, and they realize, oh no, maybe we didn't need this the whole time. So, and then it was like the nephew or her cousin.
Yeah, it really it like wraps up what feels like the main storyline in the second to last episode.
Yeah.
And then the last episode is like this like postscript kind of thing.
And like they were being pretty heavy-handed with a lot of like you know, a mosque in America and, you know, being,
which fine, like I don't
but it didn't seem right in that moment to me.
Yeah.
Like there could have been definitely a more organic way of storytelling to do that. That being said, it was a quick watch.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it could be quicker.
It definitely isn't the worst MCU show, but it definitely wasn't my favorite, and I wouldn't tell anybody to watch it.
I got through it.
Yeah.
I gave up on Moon Knight. Never finished it.
Oh, you did?
So, yeah.
So Moon Knight and this were similar, where like, so they're 6 episodes long. Half of it is one thing, other half is the other, and they both built up to like one moment that they used in like advertisements afterwards. Because like in Moon Knight, spoiler for they have like one of the side characters ends up getting superpowers, right? And then it was used everywhere, and I was like, oh, I guess I don't have to watch the last episode. I know how the climax is, and they build up to this point. And then Miss Marvel has a big moment at the end that we could talk about. I don't know if this is the time or if you have any other thoughts.
Well, let me talk about my general thoughts first. Let me talk about it, because I'm going to echo a lot of what you said.
General thoughts, Major Melon.
Aman Vellani, who played Miss Marvel, innocent of anything I'm about to say, because what a find. Like, that's the thing.
Great.
She was amazing. And like, as a character that I've loved for years in the comics, I was very excited that they found who to me like almost instantly felt like, oh, perfect. And she was just always there was never a moment where you were not compelled by her on screen. She's so charismatic, so funny, so lovable, so warm. And so whatever else and the family, great too. Her parents are awesome.
Yeah,
her brother is very funny.
Yeah.
I love the dad. The dad is fantastic. So I walk away from it thinking, well, okay, I'm not so down on this that I don't want to see any more of them, because I do. Like, I'm excited now. It's the same thing with like and I liked Shang-Chi, but I remember with Shang-Chi, I said like, well, Shang-Chi's pretty good, but what really you walk out of it saying, wow, I can't wait to see Awkwafina and Simu Liu interact with other Marvel characters. And that's how I feel now about Aman Vellani as Kamala. The show had the exact same problem for me that the Obi-Wan Kenobi show had. When the first episode was good, and the first episode was good, and the last episode was good, and everything in the middle, you're like, what are we doing here, right? Yeah. Those two shows had the exact same 6 episodes, 2 through 5. You're like, what? And just like Obi-Wan, which started as a movie, and they expanded it into a show, and you could tell watching it. This, I think, was always meant to be a show, but always should have been a movie, because I know I've seen apparently this, like, it's that thing now where like everybody just instantly forgives and like loves everything with the MCU, right? Like I have friends, and I'm sure they're listening to this, and I'm sorry I'm calling you out, but I have friends who just like they can't see any flaws in the MCU, right? And so this show has like these like amazing high scores and everything. It's like, okay, if you dug it, cool. If you dug it more than me, that's awesome. I have a hard time believing that anyone's like super wrapped up in like the clandestine storyline, because as you said, it was like very confusing. Yeah, it didn't build to a big climax. The main villain, right, the Namja or whatever, her motivations were like I could never figure out if she was supposed to be bad or good. She's not. No one's gonna remember her as like a very compelling MCU villain. No. So yeah, like that all was like just not. I mean, I agree. Like when I went back in time, I like whenever you learn about historical stuff. I saw someone tweet about how they're like, isn't that a shame that like a lot of people are learning their history through like these superhero shows like Watchmen and Ms. Marvel? And I don't agree. I think that's actually a good thing about these, right? When like entertainment can teach you about things you're not learning because our American educational system doesn't want to tell us.
Well, that's the thing. Like yes, I mean I think obviously the Tulsa stuff and this was it like 1940s? 1940s
India with like with Great Britain. Yeah.
So like. Yeah, we should have known about that beforehand, but I don't think.
And I did know a little bit about it, but I'd never seen it depicted so so directly.
Yeah. So
but yeah, so to get back to what I was saying though is like that's when that was wrapped up, I was definitely more into the 6th episode, which was just kind of fun to see her and her friends fighting off damage control in the high school, right? Like that was pretty fun. Yeah. I wish damage control had been more effectively weaved throughout, and that those characters were like the real villains, or like because like those 2 main damage control agents were nothing. Yeah. So I wasn't, even though the action was better in that last episode, I wasn't as involved and invested as I should have been. Yeah. So yeah, I think if you had like restructured that and made the entire thing about damage control trying to like rein in this new superhero. Mm-hmm. And then save the clandestine stuff for like the 2nd season or whatever, or just like not done it at all. Because like honestly, that's the other thing too. We've always talked about how the MCU up until this point, up until recently, has always been really good at like adapting the comic characters. That's always been Feige's thing, right? Where he says like, "Oh, our secret to success, whereas all the other comic book stuff failed, is I tell my writers just do the comics, just take the characters out from the page and put them on the screen." Well, this Miss Marvel has a different origin. She has different powers. Mm-hmm. The clandestine are characters that have only been in like a few Marvel comics and never interacted with her. Yeah. This is like all like this was like not Miss Marvel the comic, you know, other than like the family dynamics and everything, which is important. But I wish they had tried to have them a little closer to those early arcs of the comics, and I wish it had just been the damage control storyline, and I wish it had been a movie. So that's this edited down to 2 hours probably would have been good. At 6 hours, I was losing me.
But I will say, MCU, great casting still.
Yeah, they're always on point with that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Writing, not so much.
Not so much. Not lately.
Not lately.
All right, so the big moment that we have to talk about.
So the big moment is towards the end. Mm-hmm. The guy in a chair for Kamala Khan is Bruno. Mm-hmm. And he says, "Kamala, I've been looking at all your stuff."
Well, okay, Bruno.
Creepo. Yeah. Analyzing all of this data and all these things of the ancestors and the enemies and the fights. It's like you're just not normal. It's like you have some sort of like mutation. Mm-hmm. And as soon as he says that, you get the and it's credited as X-Men 97 theme in there. Mm-hmm. So Kamala Khan in this MCU is going to be a mutant.
Maybe. Right? I mean, probably. But that's the thing, too, is like, so first of all, I'm guessing you're going to agree. That whole scene felt like it was added on after the fact, right?
It was really strange.
It didn't fit with everything else. It felt like kind of maybe reshoots or something to edit in. At a certain point, they're like, what if Kamala was a mutant? Like, we already filmed, like, get everyone back together, right? But also, it was just vague enough to where, like, later on, they can either just ignore that or retcon it, right? Because all he said was, like, there's some kind of mutation. And I know that he's the theme, but, like...
I I would rather them just say, "You're a mutant," and she'll be like, "Oh yeah, I guess I am."
Yeah.
So for those of you who don't pay attention to the comic, she's not a mutant in the comics.
She's
in fact,
inhuman.
she's the mutant's rival.
Yeah. And we know Kevin Feige hates the Inhumans, right?
Yeah,
He does not want to have anything to do with it. Like, he brought in Black Bolt to just be brutally murdered,
which was awesome.
I guess. But and I just don't think he cares about Inhumans because he already has to figure out how to put the X-Men in to try and add in another whole race. Is like, I thought it was so weird because you had just watched 6 episodes. This is the last scene of episode 6, right? You had just watched 6 episodes that already got rid of the Inhuman thing, but like made up for it by giving her a different origin, right? Said like, no, actually, she has her powers because her family is like part of her DNA comes from this like other race, and then like her bangle like helps her, and it's like and then at the end they're like, oh, but also she's a mutant. Like what? Like it just felt so unnecessary.
It's so weird.
It was so strange, and like the X-Men theme hitting. That's the second time now in 2 MCU projects we've like heard the MCU theme. I said that's like not to keep referring to other people's points, but sometimes people make good points. Someone on Twitter did say, I wish I could remember who it was so I could credit them. But they said it's very telling that in all those Fox films, Fox like never leaned on like the nostalgia of that theme, and the MCU's already done it twice. And it's like that, even introduced. And that tells you something about the way the MCU like works, right? Where it's becoming like a nostalgia. It's becoming like a let's make those like TikTok reactors and YouTube reactors pop kind of thing. And that's what they were aiming for. That they wanted people on TikTok to be watching it and go like, oh, the X-Men theme. That's all they're aiming for, right? And I thought it was cringe. I thought it was like cringe when it came on. I was like, oh, like I did not like that scene. I'm not like morally or like opposed to Kamala Khan being a mutant. I just think it's a weird decision. I think it's strange to like start introducing the X-Men characters or the world of the X-Men in this way, to like start peppering in these like small bits like that. I wish I knew what their plan was, or if they had a plan, or if they're like, was this more like a decision where they're like, man, people are getting restless waiting for mutants. Let's just throw it in here, like because we don't know what else we're doing. Like,
yeah, I don't know. I don't know if confused is the right word, but I definitely was like, what?
Yeah.
I keep going like, I don't want this.
Mm-hmm.
Like. That's not, so the way Kamala Khan would be used probably would be like in that Jubilee, Kitty Pryde, younger person kind of going in, and I'm like, I want that to be Jubilee or Kitty Pryde and not Kamala Khan.
And Kamala Khan, I want to be Kamala Khan.
Yeah.
I just want her to be Miss Marvel. I don't want her necessarily have to be attached to the X-Men world because she's not. She's a strong enough character to exist on her own. She's already like so connected to Captain Marvel, and she's already like the sidekick in the next Captain Marvel movie, right? Like the Marvels, which the other post-credit scene set up.
Yep.
That it's gilding the Lily to also be like, she's also a mutant. Yeah. She's also gonna hang out with all of them, And
I don't think, and I won't speak for you, but like I'm not someone who's just like, that's not my continuity. That's not what I believe in. Yeah. But like when you start thinking about the storytelling that both of these would take away by kind of pushing these two together, it kind of seems strange. So. I mean, we'll see how it goes.
And did you see that Aman Vellani did an interview afterwards where she confirmed, she's like, and yes, like, she's like, I talked to the showrunners about this, and like my powers were based on armor. And I was just like,
I saw that.
Oh, well,
why get armor?
Yeah, why can't we just have armor? Like we've always been asking for armor. She was one of the characters that she came very far in our like characters we want to see on screen.
We love armor.
So does that mean we're not going to get her now because they gave her powers to someone else? Like this is where you start to get a little.
Armors will be red though.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a little disheartening.
Yeah,
seeing that. But
what do you think of the other post-credit scene with Captain Marvel?
Whatever.
Yeah,
I don't care.
It's fine.
I don't care at all. We've got another movie coming out in November.
Mm-hmm. So now we're getting into the stuff from Comic-Con. You want to get into that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
So they announced a lot in Comic-Con.
Mm-hmm. Do you think they went into Comic-Con? I'm sure they didn't. I'm not saying they like redid what they were going to present, but do you think Kevin Feige walked onto that stage last night feeling like he needed a victory? Because do you feel like do you think he's conscious of? Because I've seen a lot more discussion recently about people saying like it's still all making money, but I've seen a lot more people being like, hey, this is like people in particular have been talking about this phase feels directionless, and people I think are like getting a little bored.
I think that was why they so what they did is they addressed that these three phases are all called the multiverse saga. I bet there was internal dialogue of people saying, "Oh, the fans aren't getting what you're setting up for all of these things," and them going, "Okay, well, we'll make a logo and we'll put it all together," because people love, myself included, love those little like templates where they put all the timeline stuff up. Right? I remember watching the first time they did that with Phase 3. Yeah, and it was great, and I was a sucker for it. I've been wanting those, right? And so yeah, they basically came out and said, "Oh, well, here's the end of Phase 4. It ends this year with Wakanda Forever, and then here's Phase 5, which was basically all stuff we knew, except for a Thunderbolts movie
and the Daredevil show.
18 episodes.
18 episodes.
Good Lord, no,
I know.
Thank you.
I know, right? That was like where when I first saw the logo, because I was like, like everyone else, like later on going through Twitter, and I saw Daredevil, and I was like, okay, cool. Like, and then 18 episodes, and just like. I think they're having a hard time figuring out how to fill 6 episodes. Like
18 episodes. Why?
Yeah, even the Netflix show, the Netflix Daredevil show was like 13 episodes, and that was always like
I never finished it.
Yeah,
it's too many. I mean, you're bringing back all the same people.
Yeah. That's bizarre to me. And not only like here's the thing. I don't know if you kind of were aware of this. It's an 18 episode Daredevil show. After Daredevil is also already going to be in She-Hulk and Echo.
Yeah,
we're gonna have like 30 hours of Daredevil.
They are overestimating the amount of Charlie Cox love.
Yeah.
Great guy.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Well, he's good. He's a good Daredevil.
I don't know if he's a good man. I don't know if he's a good person.
Probably not. They're all awful.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah.
Epstein Island.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, so that was into Phase 5, and you're like, everyone was getting, like, people were still hooting and hollering online. I was like, we already knew all this stuff, man. And then they drop Phase 6. Starts with Fantastic Four, which we already knew existed. But they didn't give us a new director because the director dropped out.
They gave us a logo, which was just a 4, and everyone's like, ah! And it's like, oh, it's a 4.
They said that's the start of Phase 6. And I was like, okay, I mean, sure.
Yeah.
I do get a little tickle in my throat when I saw Avengers Kang Dynasty. And then Avengers Secret Wars, which we knew was going to be the culmination of that.
Which I'm guessing the Russos will come back for because they've been talking about it.
They said no.
They've also said in the past that I don't believe Feige anymore. Feige said King Valkyrie is going to find her queen. I don't trust this guy anymore.
Not about love.
But the Russos have said that like Secret Wars is one of the projects that could bring them back to the MCU, and you know what? They need to come back because nothing else they're doing is.
What about trashing theaters?
Yeah.
But then I was waiting for that final announcement. You know what I thought was going to happen? What I thought was going to happen was like something that would happen in a video game concert, like a Deadpool 3 comes and scribbles his name on the timeline.
That was the weird one. That was weird that wasn't there because we know that's not when you say like all these things we knew. That is something we knew and they just didn't talk about.
Yeah. So, so those are the announcements. Now, anything out of those announcements that you were like, awesome? No.
This is what sucks. This is what I mean. So again,
but full disclosure, you're dead inside.
I'm dead inside, but this is like it's weird because like whenever I talk to my friends now and then I'm in this message thread, and like I said, this message thread has friends who are like still a little bit more into it, and I can tell, I can get a vibe where they think I'm just being like an asshole now. I think but I want to be. That's the thing is I'm not happy that I don't care anymore. You know, it's because like to be fair, these are characters. I don't just get bored of things for no reason. These are characters that I've loved in the comic world since I was a kid, and I still do. Right, for 30 years I've been into these characters, so I should still be into this stuff. And if I'm this disinterested, it just does mean something is awry and something's off now.
Sure.
And none of those announcements, like you said, like
didn't move the needle.
Didn't move the needle at all. Like the things I'm excited about. Well, one second. The things I'm excited about are the things I always was. Right?
I know what you're gonna say.
The Black Panther trailer,
which we'll get into. Yeah. Guardians 3 when the High Evolutionary walks out.
Yeah, I mean that was kind of cool to find out he was in it, right? And like they haven't shown us that trailer yet. We haven't seen it. That one hasn't gone online yet. But I was always excited about Guardians 3, right? Yeah. Now I'm worried because I was always excited for Love and Thunder too. I hope Gunn can sync this. I think he can. I trust him. Because Peacemaker was awesome. Suicide Squad was awesome. Yep. So I think I'm still have faith in that. But that was always the one I was excited. All the stuff I already knew about, like I don't.
Echo, Who cares?
Echo, yeah, whatever. I like the character of the comics, but again, it doesn't matter. Captain America: New World Order, fine, whatever.
NWO. Do you think Nash is in it?
If they get Nash and Hogan to be in it, like, yeah.
They should. They have to at least have like Easter egg names.
Yeah, and then a CGI Scott Hall. All right.
Jedi Ghost Scott Hall.
Yeah.
Or like the main bad guy's got to do his like.
What if they had announced? Would you have like lost your mind if they're like, okay, Phase 5, Captain America: New World Order, Phase 6, Captain America: New World Order, Wolfpack,
and Conan, Viva la Raza! Conan comes out. Yeah. What's X-Pac doing? He can be in.
Yeah, I'm sure he's free, right?
Yeah.
They're doing like conventions where they sign autographs for like $40. I'm sure they can do a Marvel movie.
Would you buy an X-Pac? Okay, so you go up to X-Pac, former wrestler. Mm-hmm. What do you want him to sign it as? 1, 2, 3 Kid, 6, Sean Waltman, or X-Pac?
Why can't he do? What if he just did all of them? What if he just like wrote down the entire thing? I'd probably go
1, 2, 3 Kid, maybe.
Nah, I'd say 6.
1, 2, 3 Kid is what got me into wrestling in the early 90s.
I feel like most of his like best matches were his like brief run as 6 in WCW. It's some good stuff then. X-Pac, I liked X-Pac when he first came into WWF because it was WWF back then. But he wore out his welcome pretty quick.
Wow. Yeah.
Remember X Factor? Him and Justin Credible and Albert. Yeah, A-Train. I think it was. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Anyways,
they didn't get announced. That didn't get announced.
That didn't get announced. So nothing moved the needle. But which we said we were going to talk about. Black Panther trailer is pretty good. For a movie, we've always been kind of like, what is this going to be? And like,
very good. That got me hyped.
It got me hyped, and it did make me feel like this movie's going to like hurt to watch. You know, like yeah.
So, yeah.
And this is coming from someone where I still disagree with the decision not to recast T'Challa.
You know what? I always was like, no, don't do it. Mm-hmm. But I've been reading a lot of the internet, which always correct. Mm-hmm. They get the recast T'Challa thing. Yeah. Hashtag. I think they've convinced me. Mm-hmm. It looks like everyone brought their A game. Well, okay, so I'm not an actor.
Yeah.
Sue me. I don't know how to act. I would imagine that having that much real life pain could enhance your performance.
There are shots in that trailer of Letitia Wright, like, you know, mourning on the beach. Angela Bassett, where you can just...
Angela Bassett's like little monologue that's...
She says my entire family's... Like, yeah, I mean, Angela Bassett is already probably one of the 5 best actresses in the MCU.
Awesome. So yeah, she's great. Yeah, so that got me more... Because I was like, what are they going to do? Is it going to be lost? Because you hear about like, oh, we're going to go through so many things with the script. Mm-hmm. The guy who edited the trailer posted it. He was like, I hope you guys are all excited. He edited the first one, and I was like, I want to send this guy like a gift basket because I just kicked Trevor's...
Like, okay, playing footsie, that's fine. I'm getting so excited about this.
Yeah. Hell of a trailer.
Yeah. I mean, to the point where at the end, when you see, and we all know it's Shuri, right? But when when the new Black Panther, when the claw comes down, I mean, you feel like the excitement. We're like, oh, this is pretty cool, right?
Just seeing the stuff underwater with Namor and
were you a little concerned though that they look so much like the Na'vi?
Yeah,
which like wouldn't even be that, which would already be funny, but the fact that it's like also just like a month before the new Avatar is finally coming out, right?
I thought that was funny.
Yeah,
I was yeah. If you were just like someone who just came to this planet and is absorbing like all pop culture over the last 20 years, you would see this and go, oh, the Avatar's in the MCU and this is the Avatar crossover. Yeah.
Could still.
But Namor looks great.
Now, do you think, is this going to be where we get our next mutant character? Like, are they going to acknowledge Namor as a mutant in this movie?
I don't think they acknowledge it, but I think it's in their back pocket.
Mm-hmm.
Because
they can't do solo Namor movies though, because it's
Universal.
Universal. Yeah. So he's like in a Hulk realm where he can do other things. But
apparently they can do Disney Plus shows though with Hulk like as the star.
Okay.
Apparently that's what someone said. Like that's not part of it. Like, that's a Universal didn't have that in the thing. But Namor, like he could be like the Loki who just shows up in a lot of things, steals the scene, and doesn't need his own movie, and then obviously he gets his own show. But
so now it looks great. Now we just need Letitia Wright to keep herself under control.
Get a vaccine. Jesus Christ.
We don't want to also have to lose Letitia Wright.
What is this? Come on, Letitia.
I felt like Ryan Coogler. I hope that movie's successful because like what he had to go through in that, like I mean, obviously not that that's the biggest concern, but like to lose your leading man and then to have all these delays because of her getting injured, and then also like maybe she can't come back into the country because of the vaccine thing. And I recently read that her injury was like even like a lot worse than people initially thought. Like it was a really bad
she did her
injury.
own research for surgery, didn't
So.
That trailer. So like the whole time I was like, man, there's gotta be like one more thing like they do in video game conferences. They go, oh yeah, one more thing. Mm-hmm. Here's Mario jet skiing, but then once I saw the trailer, I was like, yeah, it's a fine note to end on.
Yeah, that is what you should end on, and it's only like it's really only fitting for everybody involved in that movie to end on that.
Yeah, it was.
Now
great.
That being said, were you expecting, and were you two questions? Were you expecting X-Men announcements, and were you disappointed not to get any?
Always disappointed.
Yeah,
I want X-Men announcements.
Because every time they don't have them, it makes me still concerned that they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah. I was kind of expecting it.
I was too.
Bit.
I honestly,
because you heard the scuttlebutt. You heard the scuttlebutt of the casting.
Yes, and that's the thing is there was a part of me that actually I started to let myself believe a little bit we were gonna today know who Wolverine was. Right?
Oh, you were thinking the Wolverine scuttlebutt.
Yeah.
I was thinking the Cyclops Professor X one.
So I heard Esposito as Giancarlo Esposito as Professor
X, which I think would be great.
Yeah.
I think we've talked about him in the past before.
If you can get Giancarlo Esposito in your franchise, do it.
Yeah. But Colossus, maybe. Could he play Colossus, you think?
Yeah. Have you seen this guy act? He could do it. He could be Callisto. Like he's not.
I think Colossus would be a harder thing for him. He'd definitely be Callisto. Yeah. So him as Professor X, and you hear some people say, "Well, Professor X, we could get." No, Professor X is a pervert and a gross human being. Giancarlo, who's great at playing villains, I think would be a great person.
And then you get Bob Odenkirk as Magneto.
Yeah. And then for Cyclops, you heard this one.
I didn't hear Cyclops.
Glenn Powell. Do you know who that is?
Yes, because Top Gun 2 was amazing. Yeah.
He looks, the headshots that I've been seeing and the shirtless pics.
And he's like one of those guys, right, who after Top Gun, everyone's like, well, God, Glenn Powell. He's like,
yeah. So apparently he's on there.
Everyone's trying to swoop in and get him.
He looks like Cyclops.
Uh-huh.
He looks great. I could grate some cheese off that.
Mm-hmm.
Ab.
Then you bring back Miles Teller as Reed Richards.
Stop it. Okay. Stop. I know you support Miles Teller and everything he's ever done. And Josh, whatever his name is, listen.
I'm just saying. No, but you heard the Wolverine one, right?
Taron Egerton?
Taron Egerton, yeah.
No, I'm behind that. We've talked about that before.
Yeah, I'm behind it. He's a little young. Like, that's the one thing is, like...
He needs to be...
Not used to seeing that young of a Wolverine. Like, it's going to be... I wouldn't be surprised if they want a young Wolverine so they can lock him in for 20 years.
De-age him. No, old age him
a little bit. Like,
age him and then just slowly
just let him
reverse it.
Yeah. But no, he's a great actor, so... Well, I don't know, he's a great actor.
He's a good actor.
He's a good actor.
And he's ripped.
Yeah.
And he's only like 5'8".
Yeah.
Like me.
And so I thought maybe we were going to get something like that. And then there was that rumor, I don't know if you saw it, and this is where I started to get a little worried. Because there was like a bunch of things about here are the projects we expect, Marvel to announce, and obviously a lot of them didn't happen.
Oh, the Mutants?
The Mutants,
yeah. We've talked about that before.
Yeah, everyone kept saying like Marvel's definitely going to introduce this movie called The Mutants, and I was just like, please don't. Please don't have the first movie be called The Mutants.
No.
Like, no. Stop. It's X-Men, right?
Yeah,
like,
not X-Men.
Yeah. But yeah, so I was definitely disappointed. And I'm just...
Here's the thing. Free money for you, Feige. The Uncanny X-Men.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Their second one, The Astonishing X-Men.
Yep.
The third one,
Extreme X-Men.
Extreme X-Men. The fourth one, I can't believe it's not X-Men.
Mm-hmm.
Done. Print the money.
Yeah.
Baby.
And this is something we talked about before too. Anytime they go to Comic-Con and don't have Ryan Reynolds come out on stage in the Deadpool costume...
He's going to not want to do it.
Why are they not... He has it on him all the time.
Yeah.
Call him and say, hey, can you be here tomorrow with the Deadpool costume? He'll do it.
Even if he just is in the audience. They don't have to announce it.
Yeah.
It's just free marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Free real estate.
So, yeah, I wish he'd been there. Yeah, I wasn't even a huge... I'm not even a huge Deadpool 2 person, but that reminds me, so Deadpool, Logan, and Deadpool 2 all got put on Disney+. Plus. Mm-hmm. Did you see the thing about the description of Deadpool 2?
It just says it's
a sequel to the first one? Yeah, that's pretty funny. Yeah, so I don't know. And overall underwhelming for me, Marvel panel, but Black Panther 2 trailer definitely the highlight.
Yeah, it definitely has got me pretty stoked about. Yeah. And it looked spot on. Like I feel like they saw a cut of Love and Thunder, like in March, and they're like, all right, we're just gonna pull all you guys here, these post VFX people. You go work on Black Panther. We're punting on this.
Yeah, I mean,
we're just gonna do that. Y'all go.
It's that, and I like Taika Waititi, but here, let me come with the hottest of takes. I think Ryan Coogler might be a better filmmaker than Taika Waititi. You know what I mean? Like, he's just, Black Panther. Yeah. Black Panther had some unfortunate CGI issues, the first one, but overall, it looked pretty beautiful.
You gotta watch Eternals, man.
Yeah. Do I? I don't know. It sounds like, ultimately, do I need to see Eternals? Are any of these, is it going to mean anything at this point?
Well,
I feel like they're just kind of like,
I feel like they're like,
it's
pretty. It's a very pretty movie.
There's plenty of pretty movies. I can go watch a Terrence Malick movie. What are you like? You and Kevin Feige both like shocked by sunsets existing? Come on.
Well, that's where we met.
Do we want to talk about the X-Men '97?
Yeah, we could talk briefly about that. They didn't show what I was hoping they'd show, which is like the actual animation. You saw some character designs.
But that was funny too, because we were just talking about people like the modern fandom. I saw like a leaked thing of Star Wars fans watching the Ahsoka trailer. And the show's called Ahsoka. They're like, here's this trailer for Ahsoka. Ahsoka comes in, everyone's like, she pulls down her hood, and everyone's like, ah! It's like, yeah, why you didn't think Ahsoka was going to be in Ahsoka? And I felt that way watching the reveal of the X-Men characters, like who's on the team, because it was the exact team from the original show, and they did it one by one, and people applauded for every one. Like,
have you ever heard of Wolverine?
Yeah. Oh my God, Wolverine's gonna be in it. Oh, Cyclops is there, and they all just look.
They got to believe.
They all pretty much looked exactly the same.
Yeah.
There were some new additions though. So we got Nightcrawler, Cable, Morph is back. Sunspot, I believe, was in there.
Yeah, but they didn't say they were part of the team.
It makes it seem like they're going to be kind of regulars. And I saw where
Cable was great in the animated series. That's why I became a Cable fan.
Emma Frost, Sebastian Shaw, Val Cooper. We saw. They said Val Cooper's going to be a big part of this, and Mr. Sinister. And then the one big reveal is that Magneto is the leader of the team in this incarnation. And
I love that run.
They put him in the old the M costume that he wore when he was the leader.
I loved him as the leader. I remember when we did if you go back and listen to the episodes, because I didn't even know that happened, and that was such a fun time of my life.
It kind of makes sense too. So this is why I did want to talk about it briefly, because I wanted to ask you about this. It makes me wonder the usage of Magneto in the MCU. And the reason I say that is because I thought about, like, oh, that's interesting that they're making him the leader of the X-Men in the cartoon. And then I realized, oh, you know what? Any kid today who's a fan of the comics mostly, Magneto, we've talked about this before, Magneto's been a hero or an anti-hero for, like, 25 years now in the comics.
Yeah.
Like, longer than he was a villain before, I think, or, like, at least it seems equal. Are the days done of just having Magneto be a flat-out villain? Like, when he shows up in the MCU, is he also going to have to be... Obviously, he can always be kind of antagonistic, but is he going to be more of an anti-hero again? And that's also another way to kind of... Because he basically got there in the Fox movies eventually, too, right? Yeah. He was pretty villainous in the first one, but then the Michael Fassbender run was obviously more, anti-hero. So, yeah, I mean, I think that was a calculated decision to say, we can't just have Magneto be the villain anymore. Like, that's not how people know him anymore. And I wonder if just in general, in both the comic world and in the film and TV world, if nobody wants to put Magneto back to being a bad guy, if now everyone is too into that idea, not too into, but if everyone is just so locked into that idea of him and Xavier being two sides of the same coin, but both fighting for mutant rights and being somewhat heroic. Do you think that's the case? Like,
I would see that, and I think that's how I like both. I like them both the same. But I do love a good anti-hero.
Yeah,
Magneto.
they have enough. The X-Men have enough villains that you don't need Magneto to just be a villain. And I always have liked Magneto being a part of the team.
And he could still do something like to kind of screw somebody over if at the end of the day he believes that is going to further his cause of, mutant justice. Yeah. So. There's a moment in the X-Men 6, the Duggan run right now, where Sunfire, I don't know if you've caught up or anything like this.
Maybe I've read this.
Sunfire, protects this guy who's clearly a bad guy, who's clearly not doing something good. And he's like, this is not our way. And by not defeating this person, it totally, is going to fuck up everything. And Magneto would have just been like, yeah, okay, I can see 3 moves ahead that this guy is actually not on the up and up. Let's kill him.
Yeah.
Neutralize him somehow. So, sometimes you make an omelet, crack a few eggs. So,
the only other X-Men kind of news story I saw come out of Comic-Con was that Chris Claremont is going to be doing a new Extreme X-Men miniseries, a direct sequel to the original comic. I always think it's funny when they do things like that because it just feels like Marvel throwing Claremont a bone. Like,
you carried us for 20 years.
Yeah, you keep bothering us. We don't want you to do any of the in-continuity stuff. Here's another out-of-continuity thing.
Yeah. Oh, so it is out of continuity.
I assume it's out of continuity. It sounds like it is. I
saw some people that on the cover, and I was like, I like where they're at, right?
Yeah, it sounds to me like it's out of continuity. But, yeah. And honestly, none of these Chris Claremont return books have been good. So,
no.
Yeah. I love the guy. Love what he did for us.
Oh, yeah.
But it's been a while since he's written something like that actually turned out. But yeah, so that was Comic-Con.
That was Comic-Con, yeah. So nothing too earth-shattering.
We have D23 coming up. There's still a lot of gaps in Phase 6 that they're probably going to start filling in soon with TV show announcements and everything. I just feel like there's still... I feel ultimately I think if there's any discussion that's still going on in a major way with them, it's that they don't know whether to use X-Men as a TV property or a movie property. I think that's what they're still trying to figure out.
Do you think there's still any discussion about, with this whole multiverse thing, is there characters and actors they want to bring over?
Well, I heard what show was it? Apparently Ralph Boner's coming back. Did you hear that?
Yeah. Oh, goodness. What was that? Yeah.
And now, because you and I talked about this at the time, the idea of bringing Ralph Boner back... why, right? Unless you did get affected by how angry people were, and if you're ready to be like, oh, actually, there's a double twist to this, and he was Quicksilver from the other universe, but he got turned, you know what I mean? That's what I still think they might pull out of their hat now.
Yeah, he shows up in Agatha. But what show was he supposed to come back in? What did they say?
I can't remember if it is Agatha or... No, it's not, right? It's something else. Yeah. Was it She-Hulk, maybe? I don't know. I can't remember. There's too many of them. It's their...
Oh, Andor.
Yeah, he's going to be in Andor. That's right. Yeah.
Him and who's the guy who plays Saul Guerrero? Well, I can't think of his name.
Forrest Whitaker.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I can't remember what I was saying there, but yeah, whatever. I just the TV versus movies thing.
Yeah.
Obviously, I would like to be a movie because we are excited about movies, and I don't want to keep watching these 6 to 18-hour shows, but also we've talked about before about how the X-Men, there's so much potential for other things in the TV world, so I don't know.
I think it'd be cool if you
were talking about sorry,
bringing I was gonna say I think there are certain books, X Factor, right, Detective Agency, I think would be an awesome show. I think The Excellence would be an awesome show where it's still in that X-Men mutant universe. You could even do a Bishop. What was the mutant? What was his show? District X.
District X, yeah.
Yeah. I feel like Bishop's one of those characters that just is
underutilized.
Yeah. He's a character that I dig a lot. In the comics, they've made him a Captain Commander, right? And he shows up and he gets his own somewhat juicy things.
Because it's important today to kind of keep him out of the cop element.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. But I think that there is there's a world where he's where he could carry a show.
Yeah,
because I think his character's interesting enough.
You asked about Fox actors. But here, by the time they get to whatever they're doing with them, all of the Fox actors are going to be aged out of this, right? I think I still say the only actors who I think you would come over would be McAvoy, but they're already talking about if it's these are just rumors, right? But they might want to put their own stamp on Xavier. I think because here's the thing, because they already used Patrick Stewart in Multiverse of Madness, they've already allowed themselves to also use McAvoy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They've set that up. They actually have the precedence for that because McAvoy ages into Patrick Stewart in that world. So you might as well use McAvoy actually, but. And he said he's down for it, so that's what I would prefer.
Yeah.
And then maybe Fassbender, but also by the time we got to Dark Phoenix, I think everybody was kind of like, we're done with Magneto and Xavier, right?
Right.
But I don't think any of the other actors are coming over. I think maybe Evan Peters if they decide to actually finally go back on that, but I don't think they'd want to use Sophie Turner and Ty Sheridan. I think they'd rather put their own get their own actors for those roles.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Cody Smith McPhee though, maybe he's got some. he's got some hype on him, and he always will look like Nightcrawler. So
yeah. Plus, he can literally teleport.
Yeah,
very helpful.
And he smells like sulfur. I don't know. Apparently, the film. That's why they filmed so much of Power of the Dog outside.
Outside, yeah. And why Benedict looked like that every time they were around each other. Well, that's it for this one.
Yeah. You don't want anything else you're like watching or?
Let's see. The Rehearsal. I watched the first episode.
Is it good? I haven't seen it yet.
So Nathan Fielder, so like from Nathan For You fame, does The Rehearsal. It would be a misstep for me to even try and explain the concepts, but it was very funny. The first episode was great.
I'm looking forward to watching it.
I'm catching up with the comics. I got the app, and that is exciting.
Yeah.
And
I want to propose to you also, since we know, propose to you on air. So if you say no, this might be embarrassing, but since we know X-Men 97 is coming next fall. Maybe up to next fall, we can get through all of the original run. Do some seasons and some season recap episodes.
Absolutely. I think that's
because I want to rewatch it anyways before the show.
Because you're afraid you might forget what's going on.
Yeah, I'm worried that I might not remember who Cyclops is.
He's the guy with one eye.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I saw. Did you read The Deaths and Lives of Wolverine?
Yes, I've read that.
Yeah.
Liked it.
Yeah.
Very good.
Which I think we should deep dive that.
Yeah,
so
that'd be a good one.
Yeah. What are you doing? What are you watching?
You know what fandom I got really back into? You might know this if you are following me on Twitter, because it's been the only thing I've been tweeting about recently. Is I've been pulled back into Star Trek fandom.
Yeah.
Which I never expected, because I was definitely I was always like, when I was growing up, I liked Star Trek. I saw like 4 and 5 in the theater as a kid. I was always kind of into I think like a lot of people, I liked the movies a lot and didn't know the shows as much. But then Next Generation came on when I was like 8, and so I would see that on TV every once in a while. But I was always really into the movies. And then there was a period in like the 90s where I was like a really big Star Trek fan. Like I got really into it, and I went back and watched a lot of the old stuff, and I started like collecting Star Trek toys and things like that. And then I kind of always became more casual, and I'm in that camp where the recent stuff like Discovery and and then what I saw Picard, it all just seemed like hot garbage to me. Like it's cool that people like it. I'm not going to be that person. I've outgrown this. Like any kind of franchise can be anything to different people. It just wasn't what I was into. So like whatever. It's still Star Trek, and I know it has its fans. But then I heard some talk about how this Strange New Worlds show is like old Trek. Yeah. And I watched it all and I loved it. Like
how many episodes? Is it first season?
10 episodes, but it's episodic. So they went back to not being serialized. It's like the old Trek where every episode is its own story. Love the entire cast. Love that crew. Captain Pike is already like maybe my favorite captain. Ethan Peck is awesome as Spock. So really got into that. Then I started watching Lower Decks, which is the cartoon from Mike McMahon, who's one of the Rick and Morty writers, and it's basically a Rick and Morty Star Trek. So they did their panel yesterday, and I was very excited to find out they're doing a Lower Decks Strange New Worlds crossover episode, where it's going to be part animated, part live action. So it's cool. Like it's nice to go back to like a fandom you used to be in, and for it to feel like there's finally like a little bit of a creative resurgence. Yeah. Because Alex Kurtzman is not. He's the overall guy, but some of the shows he's letting other people handle, and those are like the ones that
clearly. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I was not a Star Trek guy. I dabbled in it here or there, watching some of the original movies or even like obviously the newer ones, but never was anything that like grabbed me. And there's been nothing so far that anyone's been like, you have to watch.
I would say if you want to, I would heavily recommend Strange New Worlds. I've recommended it to a couple other people who did not care about Trek and have no past experience, and they liked it because it's not, you don't have to know, like it's really its own thing. So
all right, cool. Well, thanks for watching / listening. Thanks to Frank the Punisher for sending us the stuff.
Really appreciate it.
And we will see you folks next time.
See ya.
Bye.